Japan is usually associated with efficiency, politeness, safety, and social order, which is probably why strange news stories coming out of the country tend to stand out so much. And recently, there have been several stories that sound almost too ridiculous to be real. One woman was arrested after allegedly breaking into the home of a complete stranger just to slap him in the face. An elderly man was accused of stealing an entire toilet from a public restroom and reportedly using it in his own home for months. And in northern Japan, local authorities are now experimenting with drones that bark like dogs and fire loud noises to scare away bears. Individually, each story is strange on its own, but together they create a surprisingly entertaining snapshot of what's been happening in Japan lately. So today, let's go through some of the weirdest recent news stories from Japan in spring of 2026. This first story comes from Fukuoka Prefecture, where police arrested a 54-year-old woman after she allegedly entered the apartment of a man she had never met before and slapped him in the face. According to reports, the victim was a man in his 20s who was inside his apartment late at night when the woman entered the residence and assaulted him. What immediately caught people's attention was the fact that there was apparently no relationship between the two at all. The man reportedly told police he did not know the woman. Why did the woman do it? She admitted to the police that, "There is no mistake that I struck him with an open hand." But other than that, no details have been forthcoming. This is what turned the story from a fairly normal crime report into something much stranger. If there had been some kind of argument, personal dispute, or relationship involved, people could at least understand how the situation developed. But, according to the reports, this appears to have been completely random. In addition, breaking into someone's home in Japan is treated very seriously, which makes the contrast even stranger. The crime itself is serious, but the apparent reason behind it feels bizarrely minor. What do you think the possible motive was? Let us know in the comments below. And somehow, this still wasn't the strangest story of the week, because next we need to talk about the stolen toilet. Another story getting attention involved a 70-year-old man in Saga Prefecture who was arrested after allegedly stealing a toilet from a public restroom facility. Not part of a toilet, like the expensive washlet seats that are the hallmarks of modern Japanese toilets. Nope, the entire thing. According to reports, the toilet was removed from the facility and later discovered installed inside the suspect's home, where it had apparently been used for around 3 months. The logistics of this are what fascinated people online. This wasn't somebody grabbing a small object and running away. Removing and reinstalling a toilet actually takes time, tools, and at least some plumbing knowledge. It's the kind of crime that requires planning, transportation, and a level of confidence that most people probably don't have. Anyone who has spent time in Japan also knows that toilets here are often surprisingly advanced. Heated seats, bidet systems, electronic controls, motion sensors. In some cases, Japanese toilets look more technologically sophisticated than household appliances in other countries. So naturally, many reactions focus less on the theft itself and more on how somebody even manages to pull this off. People joked about whether the installation was professionally done or whether the plumbing worked properly. There's also something strangely practical about the crime itself. Out of all the things someone could steal, this man apparently decided that what he really needed was a toilet. And, according to reports, he successfully used it for months before being caught. Strange indeed. But while the first two stories here were mostly funny because of how absurd they were, the next story shifts into something that sounds bizarre in a completely different kind of way. Because, as I've reported in other videos, Japan is currently dealing with a growing bear problem. And some local governments are responding with technology that sounds like it came from a science fiction comedy. Japan recently confirmed its first fatal bear attack of the year, while additional suspected attacks have also been investigated in northern parts of the country. Bear encounters have become a growing issue in Japan over the last several years, especially in rural and mountainous regions. Part of the problem is connected to depopulation in the countryside. As smaller towns shrink and abandoned farmland spreads, wildlife has gradually moved closer to residential areas. At the same time, food shortages in mountain regions can push bears towards towns and farming communities in search of food. As a result, sightings have increased noticeably in some prefectures, and local residents in affected areas have become increasingly concerned about unexpected encounters. Japan has been trying several different methods to deal with the problem, but one of the more unusual solutions attracting attention recently involves drones designed to scare bears away from populated areas. And these are not just normal surveillance drones. Some experimental systems use drones equipped with speakers that emit barking dog sounds. Others are designed to produce loud noises similar to firecrackers in order to frighten bears before they approach residential zones. On paper, there's actually solid logic behind the idea. Bears generally avoid loud, unfamiliar sounds and aggressive animal noises, so the goal is to create enough disturbance to push them away without requiring direct human confrontation. Still, the image of barking drones flying through rural Japan chasing bears away from towns sounds almost too strange to be real. And somehow it also feels very characteristic of Japan's approach to technology: practical, creative, slightly futuristic, and just unusual enough that the rest of the world immediately becomes interested. So, to summarize this month's strange news from Japan, one woman allegedly broke into a stranger's apartment just to slap him. An elderly man reportedly stole and installed an entire public toilet in his own home. And authorities in northern Japan are experimenting with barking drones and loud noise systems to fight off bears. Every country has strange news stories, but Japan always seems to produce stories that combine seriousness, absurdity, and technology in a way that feels completely unique. And that's probably why these stories spread so quickly online. Even when the situations themselves are bizarre, there's usually some deeper cultural or social context underneath them that makes them interesting beyond just the headline. Still though, somewhere in Japan right now, there's apparently a bear being chased by what sounds like an angry flying dog. Anyways, let me know in the comments which story you thought was the strangest, and if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for more stories and news from Japan, including some really different things once in a while.